Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to shift gears here a little bit into a panel discussion, and I'm going to just start by getting just sort of a pulse from the room. Can I just ask for a show of hands? How many of you think that postoperative IOL adjustability is going to be something we'll be doing in 10 years? Okay, so a vast majority, and I kind of skipped the panel because that would have been a loaded question, and I think I know what we'd be answering. So, Dan, what I want to do is I'm going to start with Dr. Durrie, and you have this innate ability to kind of tell the future in all things refractive, and so what I'd like to know, I'm going to put you on the spot in front of a room full of people, and I'm going to ask you to tell the future. What's going to be happening in 10 years with postoperative IOL adjustability?
Well, I think that the important thing, 10 years from now, we're going to have to hit the refractive target. So however we're going to get there, that's going to have to be the goal at that point in time. A lot of times I don't think we think of lens implant surgery as refractive surgery, but it's the most powerful refractive surgery we do by far of anything else that we ever do. We can do plus or minus 20 diopters, we can do astigmatism, we can do presbyopia. So we need to think of this as a refractive surgery, the most powerful one we have, but we have to be extremely accurate. I think there's two forces that are going to go on. One that you're kind of seeing now is adjustability post-op. I think from the other side, you're going to start seeing how could we make it more accurate to begin with? And I think these two things will come together and be very complementary. So that the adjustments we're going to make will probably be smaller in the future. We'll still need them. But I think that we will figure out more diagnostics to be able to figure out ELP better. We're going to know the volume of the bag better pre-op. We're going to know where the zonules attach. And the other thing that I think we have to, we haven't talked a lot about it at this meeting, but electronic IOLs may adjust for us. So if we get to the point where we have an electronic IOL and all of a sudden if it's a little off, it just adjusts itself. So I think we need to think about all these things. So if I'm going to jump 10 years ahead of time, we're going to have to be within a quarter diopter and no astigmatism because our patients are going to demand it.
I can't wait to check in on this stage in 10 years and see how we did. It's so neat. When we look at, even in Dr. Garg's concluding slide, and you look how we've sort of checking the boxes with this pilot data. These boxes are important. These represent some of the unanswered questions and frankly opportunities in cataract surgery. And so to be able to reduce PCO, we're hearing this in these bag filling concepts. That's a huge part of ELP, right? And we're seeing this in different technologies, and it seems to really be working. So that alone may be part of answering this question. Dr. Slade, I'm going to turn it to you. So you performed the first femtosecond cataract surgery in the United States. Your group recently performed the first commercial postoperative direct IOL adjustability in the United States, to the best of my knowledge, and many other firsts too. So many we don't have enough time to, we could probably spend our whole time talking about it. So what I want to know from you is just how big of a deal is this? We all have this this thing where we're always hoping for the next best thing, right? And it puts too much pressure on us and on our patients sometimes. But what are the big picture implications that our industry partners should be thinking about with IOL adjustability?
Well, I think as far as IOL adjustability, I'm not sure I want to wait 10 years. Maybe I didn't make the point, but the RxSight lens is approved now. And we're actually doing it now. We're actually doing an FDA trial for patients that have had LASIK. And that's traditionally a tough group, right? Yet we're getting the best results of any cataract patients I've ever seen. And if there's going to be something that's going to make us excited to address this really crummy adoption rate, it's going to be give us a better lens. People say, oh, well, laser cataract surgery, that's not really being highly adopted. Well, it's more popular than Presby IOLs, right? At 7%. Laser cataract surgery is 12%. And it's more popular than torics at 8 US. But I don't want to be defensive. The only thing I think of, God, this is wonderful technology, and I love it, and I love the adjustability to directly answer your question. But how in the world can you get whatever science you can stack up pre-op and get a better result than clearing out the cataract, sitting the patient down, and refracting them? And then letting them use that refraction for a day or two, or a contact or whatever. They get to test drive it. I'm just not sure we'll ever be able to beat a post-op refraction with a pre-op, whatever formula or measurements or ELP. No matter what you do, it's an estimation. It's not a calculation, because you never know where that lens is going to wind up, and that's a fudge factor.
Well said.
One thing, George, if I can kind of throw in here that is so nice about U.S. FDA clinical trials is because we have all this data when something like RxSight goes through that and gets FDA approval. And then also, it happens to be, we know most of the investigators are in this, but I don't think I've ever seen a group of investigators as excited about anything other than RxSight at the end of a clinical trial. So even though you gave me the 10-year down the road, some of these things that are available now are really going to move the needle. So I'm really excited about that.
You know, I have a different approach. The low-lying fruit is to get it right at the beginning, right? If 55% overall are within a half diopter, we know it should be, in an average eye, we know it should be approaching 90%, right? So the low-lying fruit going from 55 to 90 is in the pre-op measurement. That's where we can get the biggest bang for the buck. Maybe there are some percentage increases that you can if you have an adjustable lens or a modular lens. That's true if it's that effective. But the low-lying fruit is to get it right at the beginning. If we're not even doing that, then there's an educational problem. There's bigger problems in trying to get that last few percent. So I think getting it right at the beginning has historically been what we want to do as surgeons. We want to get it right, meaning good IOLs, good biometry, good formula, good surgery up front. Get it right at the beginning. That's where we're going to get the biggest bang for improvement. In overall outcomes.
Steve, I think we have different definitions of right. You have a definition of right that's half a diopter. You wouldn't do that with a 4-opter. You wouldn't prescribe glasses. You wouldn't use that with your excimer. The reason I like this lens, and I kind of came late to it, but the reason I like it, it's quarter diopter steps. I think to get this stuff right, it's going to be quartered. I don't think half diopter steps are right. Ask any OD if a half diopter step is right.
Well, listen, the more accurate you can get, the more accurate you can measure and adjust, that's good. But I'm saying the gap between what we can even do now within a half diopter is so vast. The low-lying fruit for your average surgeon is not an adjustable IOL. It's to get better biometry, better IOL measurements, right? Better IOL selection.
The low-lying fruit for the average surgeon is an adjustable IOL because they don't have to go through all that stuff that they haven't been able to do.
We want to hear from John.
I want to weigh in here too.
Dive in.
I'm going to try to make peace here. I think you're both right.
That's why you're in. By the way, that's why you're in the middle. Just
yeah,
so you know.
nobody. I don't think anybody on this podium would suggest that we want to turn back time in terms of progress that we have made and that we're making with diagnostics, biometry, formulas, taking them to the next level with machine learning and AI and things like that. But that being said, and you alluded to it in your presentation, Steve. There's low-lying fruit out there in terms of special patient populations that might be special, but they're not small. You have the baby boom tsunami upon us, and a lot of those people have had LASIK. And even with the best of the best in terms of preoperative predictors, that population is still a struggle for all of us. And I don't know what your number was. What did annually in the U.S. post-LASIK?
250,000
IOLs.
people worldwide are getting cataract surgery that have had previous refractive surgery procedures. That's not
So
a
to me,
small
that's a
market.
very logical first place to go, and I would bet that we're going to see penetration
me,
mushroom out.
To me, the logical first place to go is baby boomers, whether they've had refractive surgery or not, because they are exceptionally whiny and needy.
Yep. I can't dispute
Well,
that.
I mean,
Speak for yourself.
and these are all really.
I am one, okay?
It's
I think
self-
George
I
is
don't
the
want
only one
half
up there
dollar
who's not
percents.
one.
Yeah, self-confessions. But Dr. Schallhorn brings up a great point, but it's amazing how much energy we've poured into doing what you're describing, and yet we haven't cracked the code. I mean, it's beyond me how much we have done to try to move that needle and still end up, despite how well we think we're doing, with
Well,
this
that kinda
type
goes to
this
my
type of big
point, though,
data.
that if surgeons aren't in tune with trying to get that right, which is relatively easy to do, good biometry, good this and that, would they even bother to go to the next step of getting even better than that with with buying more technology and having to do another procedure post-op?
I would submit we're still going to need both. Steve said it on the podium. We weren't trained to sell stuff as physicians, and when we get excited about things, we do our best, but we're not going to be able to sell this into the entire population all at the same time.
I can sell this lens.
Maybe you can.
I can sell
but
this lens.
Some of us, we
Okay.
need to walk before we run.
So, what I want to do is I'm gonna shift gears here a little bit, Dr. Schallhorn. So we've heard from two companies representing direct changes of the lens, and then two companies representing modular technology. So, what we're seeing here is sort of subgroups of this emerging technology emerge, right? So, as Chief Medical Officer of Carl Zeiss, how are you processing these different approaches, and where are you? How are you thinking of these emerging subgroups differently?
Well, I mean, there's the technology is really a lot different here. So one of the lenses we're talking about is really an accommodating IOL, right? That's different technology. If you're talking about modular design or being able to adjust an IOL post-op, listen, I think it's very interesting technology, and Zeiss is looking at this technology for some of the reasons that we talked about. Some of the reasons your presenters have talked about, because I think it is interesting. I think it's not a slam dunk from my perspective. There's issues with it. There's issues with having to do another procedure. There's how much more do you get from that? How accurate is that adjustment going to be? Right? We assume that the accuracy of the adjustment is going to be a quarter diopter. Maybe, but that's not a given that you can measure it in a quarter and reliably get a quarter diopter or a half diopter in this regard. So I think there's some issues. I think personally, it's very interesting technology. I think there are certainly subgroups, as John mentioned. There are some subgroups that I think would benefit much more in a premium case or in a difficult case, radial keratotomy, perhaps post-LASIK, that could greatly benefit from this, and also the other category where you put in a lens and the patient does not like the lens, the visual quality, and the ability to adjust, take it out, modularize that, I think is very appealing.
Any comments? I knew I could count on you.
What you're saying is that for some patients, Steve, the post-LASIK or whatever, you're going to use maybe the best technology. And it does get the best results. You question the quarter diopter. It does have the best FDA trial toric results. So you're saying that on some people, you use your best lens, and then the normal patients, you'll use something else. And that's the comment I tried to make. I don't know much about sales, but I know you can't sell second best to people when they are, figuring out their eyes. And that's back to the FOMO. You've got them in the office. They're trying to figure out what is second best and what is first
Yeah,
best.
see, I totally disagree. Putting in an
Surprise, surprise,
high-quality aspheric IOL and having a good outcome.
This is a high
No,
quality
no.
aspheric
If you put in
IOL.
an aspheric IOL,
Yeah.
a commonly available aspheric IOL, and have an excellent refractive outcome,
Right.
you're saying that an adjustable lens is superior to that outcome?
No, but you're saying that you don't get that outcome less than half of the time. And I'm
No,
saying that
I'm
after
saying
you adjust it.
the community doesn't. And if they don't,
But they haven't. How long has Warren Hill been around?
well,
He hasn't got us doing it yet.
the fact that the
And what about
that surgeons
monovision,
haven't
Steve?
done that yet.
What about
They haven't gone up
monovision?
to that level yet. Is an indication that are they going to go to the next level and buy equipment and do another procedure post-op?
They'll give you the equipment. Don't worry about it.
You know, all those
John
things.
and then Dan.
Yeah, all those things. Let's say all those things happen, and we're able to offer this to every patient. I think time will tell whether your question about the excellent aspheric technology we have today and outcomes is right or not. There will be, at some point, enough experience in the market for us to see a safety signal. I think you're absolutely right that there's a very high bar.
Largest group of premium other than just sticking in a monofocal is monovision, right? 6x your toric IOLs. Now, if you've ever fit contacts on a monovision patient, you know not only do you have to get their non-dominant eye right, you've got to get their dominant eye right spot on, because you can't have too much anisometropia. Can you really do that through a cataract? No. You do that afterwards. So there's no way you can touch this lens for monovision. You can't do it.
Dan.
One thing I wanted to, and I'll jump to the future again, because I think we're going to be doing lens replacement surgery on a different group of patients 10 years from now. We look at it as we wait. Andy Corley came up with this great little graph one time that says we have this epidemic now of this new disease called cataracts that always happens at age 65. Well, that's when we do them. Well, that's because somebody else is paying for it. That's when third-party reimbursement happens. That isn't what it's going to be in the future. My feeling is we're going to look at this as a refractive surgery. We're going to do it much earlier, and we're going to prevent cataracts. Because once you've had it replaced, you can't get a cataract. I'm waiting for the first billboard to come up there. Come to me, I prevent cataracts. He's going to be pretty busy out there. So if we're going to do that, that's going to be private pay patients. That's where it's going to go. And they're going to be very demanding. Okay, and we're going to have to hit the target better, and all these technologies will fit because we're not dependent on what is CMS going to approve for a reimbursement or what is insurance. So I think a lot of this driving that we're going to happen with all these technologies you're seeing that can make the lens better, make the lens more accurate, that can adjust, I think that's going to be great to fit in on who's actually going to be having surgery, because if you can have a 45-year-old have their lens replaced and have another 40 years of value of that, and you hit the target exactly, and they can't get a cataract, I can sell that.
I totally agree. Totally agree. John, I'm going to let you finish this out here. So I think we'd all agree that this is potentially disruptive. And what I'd like to ask you is just how disruptive is it? And let me just put this in context. What if we are able to take a blank IOL, and we're going to in-office surgery, doing this early, and then we can use an adaptive optics simulator, for example. Let the patient simulate it in advance, shape the lens in advance, put it in, and if it's not quite right, adjust it. What does that do to the number one surgical implant in the human body in the IOLs the way they're done today? And I'm asking you this as Chief Medical Officer of J&J Vision, by the way.
Yeah, there's no doubt it's disruptive, and it's disruptive at every level of the triad in the market, whether it's on the industry's end in terms of design and R&D, manufacturing, commercial execution, on the surgeon user, and on the patient. And I'd love to be sitting on this podium in 10 years to see which parts of this all become true. But to be able to, and we've seen RX Sight get across the finish line with the first proof of concept of this, and I agree with you, Steve. I think it's incredibly exciting to be able to take the precision that we're putting, or even the basic precision that we're putting in the 4-opter with quarter diopter steps, and in the excimer laser, the same way with less than that.
I'd love to be sitting on this panel in 10 years and ask each of you which lenses you chose for your own eyes.
I do think, and we probably all will have chosen by then. I do think that being able to start there and then go into things like aberration-driven correction, basically in situ 3D printing of an IOL blank, whether it's before it goes in the eye or after it's there, is incredibly exciting. And marrying, Steve was right. There are two fundamentally different technologies that were presented today. There's adjustability and exchangeability, but it's possible we'll see those two married as well.
Perfect concluding thoughts. Listen, I just want to thank our panelists. I want to thank the presenting companies, and I really want to thank Emmett and Bill for the opportunity to do this. Can we please do this in 10 years?